Welcome back, everyone. This is Real Villain playing more The Raven Remastered.
That is Legrand's cabin.
Come in.
We last picked up in the middle of a murder, and now we need to start putting together all of the clues.
Are you ready?
Good morning, Inspector Legrand. My head is pounding, but I think I'm okay.
Chloral hydrate.
Hmm?
That's why you have a headache. I found traces of it in your champagne glass.
And this chloral hydrate?
Is a tranquilizer. Can be dissolved in alcohol. The effect begins in minutes and lasts for hours. Who gave you the glass of champagne?
I believe it was Captain DeConti.
If believing were enough for us, we'd have become priests, Constable. Be a policeman and find out for sure.
Understood. Are you sure that there's no bomb inside this time?
Professor Lucien locked it in front of an audience, and it will be opened for the first time in Cairo.
Let's hope so.
It would take hours to crack it, and you'd need heavy machinery.
Or the keys.
Or the 3 keys, that's right.
I mean, even if there was a bomb inside it, the safest place for a bomb to go off on a ship is inside a safe.
What have you found out so far?
The Baroness was shot in the chest at close range. We heard the shot. The murderer quickly fled the cabin and dropped the murder weapon over the railing later. A simple story so far.
But why was her cabin door locked?
Exactly. If the murderer wanted to make it seem like a suicide, he'd have shot her in the head and left the gun at the crime scene.
And if it was murder, why did he go to all the trouble of locking the door from inside? And how did he manage that anyway?
Especially since we arrived just a few seconds later and didn't see anyone near the cabin.
Something doesn't make sense here.
No, it doesn't, and it's driving me crazy.
So this is a locked door murder.
Did you find the murder weapon?
On the gangway on the side of the ship. I suspect the murderer tried to drop it into the sea. He would have stood close to the railing to let it fall unseen.
And since he doesn't know the ship, he had bad luck and dropped it right onto the gangway.
Indeed. And do you find that probable?
Not a bit.
Neither do I.
What kind of a gun is it?
A pistol, a Luger '08.
Antique.
Manufactured 1,000,000 times during and after the First World War. Austrian model. The owner is David Kreutzer, the violinist. We found him tonight totally drunk on the bow of the ship. He confirmed that it's his gun, but he claims that it was stolen from him.
Fingerprints?
Nothing. But it's worth mentioning that the clip was missing 2 bullets.
And it's definitely the murder weapon.
The ballistic tests are incomplete. Actually, I've been waiting far too long for the bullet recovered from the corpse. Pay the good doctor a visit, Zellner, and see that he does his job.
About the bullet, here it is.
Excellent. Give it to me. As I suspected, a 7.65 Parabellum Luger.
Don't you want to examine it in more detail?
When I have time. For now, though, we can assume that we had the murder weapon. There can't be too many antique Luger '08 pistols on board.
May I take a look at the Baroness's cabin?
We already searched it thoroughly.
Sure. But what about now, by daylight?
Yes, fine, it can't hurt. Here, take this with you.
I mean, it can hurt, but...
Thanks. I'll let you know if I find anything important.
But only then, please. I'm very busy.
Of course. Do you believe the violinist?
He'll be the first person I question. He claims he can't remember anything from the last few hours. Says he drank a bottle of schnapps.
He was on the train and he doesn't have an
Schnapps.
alibi. His drunkenness could be a smokescreen.
He fits the profile. He travels a lot, has access to high society. Could be interesting.
You think that the jewel thief is the murderer?
Our friend would have needed another key to open the safe and steal the second eye. The one the Baroness was carrying. At least, that's what we implied.
What do you mean?
The Baroness was famous for her forgetfulness. I convinced her to give me the third key. It seems safer for the eye.
The thief searches the Baroness's cabin looking for the third key.
She returns from the saloon earlier than expected.
Surprises him, and he can't allow her to identify him.
He imprisons her until the coast is clear, and then shoots her.
And thus, the thief becomes a murderer.
But still doesn't have all the keys.
No, that doesn't make sense. I admit, he probably did not plan on murdering her. This just isn't making sense.
Do you really think that the Raven is behind all this?
He wrote the letter that was on the safe in the train. Without the letter, we wouldn't have opened the safe and the bomb wouldn't have exploded.
But it doesn't seem like him, does it? The Raven was famous in part because he never hurt anyone, much less killed anyone, during a burglary.
It's his handwriting, and he called me Nico. No one else does that. I chased that man across Europe for years. It is him. It has to be him.
But the evidence...
Enough.
I'll be on my way. I want to find out who gave me the drugged champagne.
Good idea.
Inspector Legrand, are you okay? Maybe you should take a break.
I can sleep once I've caught the Raven. Goodbye, Constable.
Be seeing you.
He thought better of it.
Legrand is risking not just his career, but his health as well on his hunt for the Raven. He's working like a demon. Maybe that's why he caught the Raven and no one else. I'm not paying for this trip, and that's a fair price for my cabin. It's rather... plain, shall we say. No, I've slept enough. An alarm like this one was set off yesterday. This one hasn't been set off. The security seal is intact.
I don't know if I want to go into the Baroness's cabin yet. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. But
The globe nicely shows that 4/5 of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Looking out the window, I'd call that an understatement. The cabin was sealed. I'm pretty sure the seal doesn't have any legal relevance here on the open sea, but I'm still dependent on Legrand letting me join his team. I better not blow it by breaking his seal without permission. This is the first murder scene I've ever set foot in.
no murders seen by a Swiss policeman?
The portholes face the side deck. If someone climbed out of the cabin through a porthole, Legrand and I would have seen them. The portholes are locked. One cannot open or close them from outside. It's the same problem as with the door. If someone left the cabin through the porthole, how did they lock it? And the Baroness wasn't shot from outside. The doctor said she was shot at close range. Apparently, the Baroness didn't have time to unpack her bags. Or rather, didn't have time to tell her butler to unpack them for her. Sifting through all that would take ages. But here, the Baroness's handbag. Aha! A small leather-bound book. 1964 is engraved on it. This must be the Baroness's diary. Cosmetics, a handkerchief, a spectacles case. Nothing special. Let's see.
I don't know what I'm looking for here, but I hope
Yes,
it is
it's a
something
diary,
relevant.
all right. Difficult to read. No entry from yesterday. A brief, sober description of what she's done recently. Met Morris, arranged benefit concert for renovation of Louvre Southeastern Wing, Times photo shoot for Eye of Sphinx. BM, poor excuse for photographer. Too fidgety. And so on. This entry looks strange. The handwriting is shaky, difficult to read. Dreamt of Bobby. Yesterday would have been his birthday. Next week, Jay's. The Baroness was a very busy woman, and it looks like she had to cope with loss. She writes about Bubby and Jay. Neither seem to be alive anymore. Almost every family lost loved ones in the war. Maybe hers as well. I'll leave it there. I don't have time to read all of it. Something's under there. Down feathers. Maybe from a quilt or a pillow. Nothing
Or a
special.
raven.
Although, it seems like one of the feathers was scorched at the top. Literally burnt. I'll take it with me. There's still blood on the mattress. The sheet and the blanket have already been removed. To analyze them, I suppose. Nothing. The blood spot is the only sign that someone committed a crime in here. Somehow... That's odd. The blood is so... red. Shouldn't it gradually darken in the air? Turn brown? The unusual color of the blood could be something that Legrand and Dr. Gebhardt missed last night. All cats are gray in the dark, as the saying goes. I should take a sample. The unusual color of the blood could be something that Legrand... All cat... A tape recorder. Must go with the built-in speakers. Probably part of the cabin's furnishings. The top of the range, and that doesn't come cheap. Strange. There's only one reel. And it's the wrong one. No. No sign of the original reel. A reel made by Zeibling. I know the brand. Zeibling's tapes can be overwritten many times without losing quality. They're used in offices so that executives can record messages for the secretaries on the same tape over and over again. But they're not good for much else. They're robust, but they don't offer much in terms of sound quality. A big, ugly, and impractical vase. If it had a wider opening, one could at least use it as an umbrella stand. can't see anything. Wow, heavier than it looks. Aha! Why were the down feathers tossed in the vase? Or is there anything else in there? There may be something else in the vase, but the neck is too narrow to reach in with my hand. More feathers, and they're singed as well. I'd better take it with me. Sunflowers. By Van Gogh, I presume. He liked to paint that sort of thing. Can't be an original. They cost thousands of francs. The mannequin surely came with the cabin. A mannequin for the Baroness's clothes would have a more generous figure.
Hey, who are you to talk?
The notepad has the ship's emblem on it. I suppose all the first-class cabins have them.
Wait, how did she get this note?
It says, Inspector, be in the saloon at 10 p.m. There is a murderer on board and I will expose him. B. The Baroness seems to have known the murderer, and that means that the Raven can't be the murderer. He never killed anybody. Legrand probably never got the message, otherwise he'd have said something.
Or maybe he did get the message and he's not saying anything.
There should be a ventilation shaft behind the hatch. Usually a good way to break in and out undetected. But we're on a ship. The ventilation shafts are very small here. The most unportable portmanteau I've ever seen. A portable bar is more like it. Must be hard work transporting this big, heavy thing halfway around the globe. And the Baroness was lucky that the other freight cars were only lightly damaged by the explosion. An impressive piece. But I don't think it'll get me anywhere with the murder investigations. I can't say why, and it seems impossible, but something tells me that the murderer entered and left the cabin through the door. The only question is how. Another alarm. It was tripped at some point. The seal is broken. But there's no way of telling whether it happened yesterday or 5 years ago. The door frame was damaged when Dr. Gebhardt kicked it in. The real question is, why was the door locked in the first place? Assuming the murderer isn't a magician, and the Baroness locked the door herself before she went to bed, the murderer couldn't have left the cabin through the door. So, the murderer must have still been in here when Dr. Gebhardt kicked the door in. Which is unlikely because someone would have seen him, or he found another way out of the cabin. The unusual color of the blood. All cats are...
I don't think I have anything to take a sample.
There were singed feathers under the Baroness's bed, and in a vase next to the door. That can't be a coincidence.
I think we need some help. We're not done investigating this area. I think we need someone who knows the Baroness better than anyone.
The Baroness's butler looks like he didn't get much sleep. I would describe his facial expression as worried. Hello, Mr. Inch.
Oh, Constable, hello.
You look the worse for wear. It must be terrible for you.
Quite terrible. No one will hire me now.
Excuse me?
My mistress was murdered.
That's
Would
his
you
biggest
hire
concern?
a butler who's been mixed up in a murder?
But if it turns out that you're not guilty...
If. But what if not? Who else would they blame? There are no gardeners on this ship.
I understand your problem. Under these circumstances, I'm sure you'd answer some questions that could help clear your name, wouldn't you?
Of course.
Did you notice anything suspicious last night?
No, sir. After the Baroness went to the saloon, I went to the forecastle. I was there until the alarm went off. I went to the side deck and arrived shortly after Professor Lucien and Miss Miller. We found you and Inspector Legrand there. You were unconscious, and the inspector asked us to take care of you.
Did you hear the gunshot?
No, just the alarm, sir.
How didn't you hear the gunshot?
You said you were on the forecastle. It sounded like the Baroness let you have the rest of the night off.
Not entirely, sir. One of the crew informed me that the Baroness wanted to be roused at 10:15.
Right. Why was that?
I suppose that she wanted to toast the success of the journey with the captain and the other passengers.
She hadn't intended to take a nap then.
That was not her way, sir. She had a lot of spirit, shall we say, when it came to social engagements and a glass or two of champagne.
So she was not planning on getting drunk. So someone must have drugged her, but she still wanted to meet the inspector at 10 because she thought that he had gotten her note.
The Baroness's cabin seems to have been ransacked.
Indeed, sir, by the Baroness herself.
Really?
She was searching for something the entire afternoon.
And did she find it?
I think she did, sir, yes. She was in high spirits when she finally left her cabin.
You wouldn't happen to know what she was looking for, would you?
I'm afraid not.
Would you describe the Baroness as orderly?
Well, she always had a lot of responsibilities, sir.
That doesn't answer my question.
She used to take a lot of luggage on journeys, and I helped her keep track of it as best I could. She was always very angry when she couldn't find something.
What about the photos and the documents I saw in her cabin?
I really don't know. They were out of bounds to me, sir. Memories from the war, I'd say. They meant a lot to her.
The Baroness seemed to be pretty drunk the last time I saw her.
Is that so?
Does that surprise you? Did the Baroness not drink?
Oh, yes, she drank. It was no secret.
I understand. How serious was her habit?
Serious enough, sir.
Was she under any medical supervision?
Certainly not, sir. She adamantly refused to see a doctor. Like so many elderly women, she had a distinct aversion to hospitals and the like.
How long had you worked for the Baroness?
6 months, sir.
Only 6 months. I always thought that butlers stayed with their employers for decades.
Those decades have to start at some point, Constable. Her former butler wasn't able to fulfill his duties any longer. Gout, sir.
I understand.
I took on his duties and hoped for a secure position for the next 20 years.
May I ask what happened to your arm?
A souvenir from the war, sir.
Doesn't it hinder your work?
Yes, sir, obviously.
I didn't mean to offend you.
The Baroness had a soft spot for disabled veterans. I think she'd been through a lot herself.
I think that's all for now.
Please, sir, find the murderer. You have to clear me of all suspicion.
We have to find everyone else. We have to figure out what's going on.
Curious. One can easily toss a gun into the sea from almost anywhere on the ship without being noticed. And yet, the murderer chose the one spot where it's not actually possible.
They wanted it to be discovered later.
The gangway is hard to miss. Why did the murderer drop the gun on the gangway? They must have noticed their mistake, even if their back was to the sea. So, why didn't they take the gun and throw it a few meters farther into the sea? I suppose the life jackets are stowed there, close to the railing, close at hand in case of emergency. I hope I don't find myself needing a life jacket.
Oh no, is the ship gonna sink? We don't have a good history.
It may not seem like it, but Constable Oliver is actually a very effective watchman. Constable Oliver brought something to drink. You can tell it's not the first time he's had to guard something.
What's going on?
The Raven just flew by.
What?
Or at least, he might as well have.
I wasn't asleep.
I understand. It was just a ruse. Any conclusions about our young stowaway?
Yeah, he's a bit suspicious, foreign and whatnot.
I
Oh,
see.
jeez.
Did he act suspiciously in any way?
No, the shot surprised him as much as it did me. Looked in on him earlier. Still seems to be asleep.
Covered with a blanket from head to toe?
Ah, he's still in there. I poked him.
May I go downstairs and have a couple of words with our guest?
No, you may not.
Come again?
Inspector Legrand wants to conduct all the interrogations himself.
I'm sure he'll understand if I form my own conclusions.
He ordered me to guard the door, and that's just what I'm gonna do.
How about a bit of individual initiative?
How about letting a man do his job? Or do you think you'd be better at it?
What do you think? What happened here last night?
The Raven broke into the Baroness's cabin, she surprised him, and he shot her.
What was he looking for in her cabin?
She was a rich woman.
He didn't want to steal her purse. He wanted the third key.
So Legrand also told you about that?
Why did he lock the door?
Why not?
From inside? An impressive trick.
I'm not saying I know how he did it. I'm just saying that it was him.
Why didn't he leave a raven feather?
Are you serious? We'd have suspected him straight away.
But fortunately, we still did. Let's assume that the old raven really has returned and that he really is responsible for all this. Who is he? Or she?
Oh, could be anyone. No one's ever seen the Raven.
He could also be paying someone else to do his dirty work.
Well, of course. It's a fact that he used to work with partners. They even arrested some of his accomplices.
But no one could ever identify the raven himself. Some claims that they didn't even know that they were working for him. Fascinating. He could have hired someone with financial difficulties to set off the alarm at a certain time without that person knowing why they were doing it.
The man Legrand shot back then, he was a famous safecracker. He could just as well have been a henchman.
Or the real raven. There's probably no better cover for a big thief than acting like a small one. I don't want to keep you from your duties any longer.
Good idea.
The stowaway surely didn't sleep well last night in the cargo hold, although his cell is probably more comfortable than my cabin, and more spacious. I have to talk to the young fellow right away. Even though he was already under arrest at the time of the shot, he may have noticed something before. And what about the other gunshot? Could the second missing bullet from the murder weapon be stuck down there in one of the wooden crates? If I want to get into the cargo hold, I'll have to get rid of the constable first. He won't let me talk to our young friend.
Oh, am I gonna have to do something to his drink? Well, let's figure out a way to get more clues next time on The Raven Remastered. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.